even though he is a reserve fella, he's so open about hating English, thinking they're imber, but he doesn't play them. So, you know, it's one of those situations. And starting off things on wetlands here, and we just saw Recon take out Mr. on this map, and it was a very, very shaky start. I did speak a little bit with MarineLorD about how to play this kind of matchup, but very curious what he's going to go for. But just by his opening, first 6 villagers on the food, then the next 2 go on gold, there's going to be a very quick feudal aggression from him, like we already know.
I love it, right? We just saw that, like you said, in the Mr. series, that was kind of the script that you had to go by. Mongols can't be allowed to dictate the pace, so that's where they're strongest. And English is definitely one of those weird civs that can come over the top with things like the Lombo in the early game.
Yeah, like, you know, I played Wetlands as Mongol, and I absolutely messed up my start, but this opening situation for PuppyPaw actually looks pretty good. He's got the gold behind, he's got the Uvu sort of out front, but, you know, this gold is very much protected by the TC. If he gets a tower on that Uvu later on, he should be okay. And honestly, if you are opening up a map and you're not against Dark Age men-at-arms, it allows you to get down all your production. Because that was one thing I was really worried for Recon in his match. That 1 men-at-arms, where it ended up being 3, meant he couldn't put down a stable at all. Couldn't go and build it on the Uvu, couldn't make it and then move it over because it would get blocked. Whereas this allows him a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, it's like less greedy, but as a result, you get a little bit less. Like, this isn't one of those starts where you get deep water fish right next to your TC or maybe easily accessible. Kind of thinking about like the way you've seen these two open up, we've seen a few different builds. Sometimes we see the Mongols just forgo the outpost rush entirely, especially against civs like the English. Do you think there's a way that you can try to sneak outposts ever against English, or do you just play safe?
Nah, you can't do it. You can't do it. I mean, if you do it, you're probably Casper, somebody crazy, you know, but yeah, the villagers are just too good against that stuff, you know. Like, if you're wise, you can take out the villager. If you're very wise, you can take out the spearman as well very easily. But yeah, MarineLorD did go for that very, very quick council there, just off 2 villagers on the gold. He's moved him off as well. Stopped at 26 gold. It's kind of unusual. I thought maybe he might get a little bit more, but if he does go for a barracks, which he most likely will, allows him to get out 1 men-at-arms with it, which that actually adds so much power to the push, because one thing we've learned is, even though Spearman Longbow has been kind of the bread and butter of English for so long, that 1 men-at-arms can tank so much damage, and my goodness.
Oh, it's happening. The tricky traders.
Yeah, and after seeing the Recon game, like, he was kind of getting manhandled for a good 20 minutes, like losing a lot of workers. I think at some point it was 30 workers, and, you know, he just looked on the back foot. He still managed to win. And this does force the English to kind of do things they don't want to.
He doesn't even see it, right? Like, he's just too busy messing with the deer. He's going to get the info now. And one thing I've heard described is, like, sometimes if the info is given out and you feel pressured, you know, you can just use this as a bait, get 1 or 2 trades going, and then go for a quick castle age instead of relying on trade entirely.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that they did with the new patch, traders are cheaper for all civs.
Yeah.
So instead of that being like, you know, the 75-75, obviously it's silver tree, so the gold is way less as well. It turns into 60-30 or something like that for them. So very, very cheap. And even if it is just trickling a little bit, it's good. And look at that natural or neutral marketplace.
Yes, it's glorious. Like, you can actually get more or less a completely protected half trade if you want to, with a small gap near where the boar is.
Yeah. You could go either route, actually. Like, that is, that is very nicely protected, but MarineLorD, he has to do something. Like, right now, he wants to get out a few Lombos just to get a sense of the map, just to kind of strangle the Mongol a little bit, because his eco is going to be solid. English has the advantage that they don't need to move out and gather food, given that they can get farms and whatnot. But yeah, I am curious, because depending on what he does about Silver Tree, yeah, MarineLorD could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, we'll see if he's able to actually get it far enough out. He's going in an interesting direction, because you're kind of going through the center here as opposed to, like, shifting far to the left instantly to keep it hidden. But MarineLorD opening with the spears, so doesn't have any sort of dynamic comp. I guess the logic here is if PuppyPaw goes left, MarineLorD's going to stay the course to the shortest route towards the Mongol base, right? So less likely he sees the trade.
Yeah, absolutely. MarineLorD is going for kind of an old school approach here. There's 0 gold whatsoever. He's got 45 stones. I don't know if that's for a tower later on. In fact, I don't know how he's mined that, but
there's a lot of questions right now.
A lot of questions, but
he's
the
on the fish, right?
Yeah,
there you go.
The 11 on wood. All right. So we did have a mining camp over there, so he is thinking about it later on. All right, that's good, because one weakness of Mongol, you almost always want to open up second TC against English. But you have to get out, like, your production facilities, be it an archery range or a stable. If you get out the stable, you have to get the archery range anyway, because if they make 1 or 2 spears, you're in trouble. So the amount of wood that you have to pile into that, comparative to the English, yeah, the English should get their second TC up much faster.
Yeah, and it's just a case of whether MarineLorD ever did get a glimpse of the silver tree in the end, because I think the scout, did he actually see it? I feel like he walked past it earlier.
I'm not sure. Like, I mean, MarineLorD's very good, so I have to guess that he did go for something, or at least see it a little bit.
I think, like, you can see his scout on the backside now, so maybe he actually has a suspicion because he's probably checked around the base, and even if he doesn't see the silver tree, he doesn't see the deer stone either, right?
Yeah, certainly. And even if he does scout this, he doesn't have enough to deal with it. He's gone for 1 spearman, 1 longbow. Like, he's played about as greedy as you can get, despite going for this kind of, I'm going to fast tech to H2. And PuppyPaw is going to get away with this. And it only takes like 1 trip or so for it to pay off.
Yeah.
But this way, and this is very good scouting by MarineLorD, this kind of forces him over to this left side of the map, which that's away from PuppyPaw's eco. So PuppyPaw's done a good job, and he's not overcommitted to this, right?
Yeah. And here's an interesting one that PuppyPaw is doing. Yeah, so I guess this is the melee can't hurt me if it can't reach me approach. It's all ranged archers and Magadai. Interesting choice, because I feel like historically longbows were seen as a decent solution to Magadai.
They certainly are, but we always have to remember that a map like Wetlands is pretty huge. Like, this is insane. And by the way, this spawn, fish, deer, and a boar. You know, that's every Roost player's wet dream right there. And yeah, he's going to get away with that. But now it's the question of what's better, trade or a second TC? And I'm a little surprised about the silver tree positioning, because I like the way that Recon did it. When you put the silver tree next to the neutral market and then, you know, you skip a trip kind of thing. But very curious what he's going to do with this.
Well, he's going full distance now, right in the corner. The sacred site ruins his perfect length here. But the interesting thing to me is, like, this Magadai, it's an interesting choice, especially against the English, because it's not easy to get anywhere near these TCs, right, with the double arrow fire.
Yeah, I think one really nice thing for PuppyPaw, if he does go into the Magadai, it's a very easy switch to get the horseman out as well, because then you're absolutely super relying on these longbow to do something. But I dare say MarineLorD probably doesn't feel too concerned at the moment. If you look at his food count and his wood, he's got nothing on gold right now. Like, I think soon he's going to be pumping out a lot of units, and then maybe trying to just get in between, because that silver tree, you've got a lot banking on that. It's not in a safe location.
Yeah, it's definitely. And here's an interesting thought. Like, I'm obsessed with the Magadai. You kind of have to be in this one. Maybe it's the map because of the lack of vision. So, like, even against Lombos, you can gap close before they can use that extra range to counter you.
I also, you got to remember that there's going to be so many baked choices here. Like, you go Magadai, and then he's making a lot of horsemen, right? So the answer to the Magadai is the longbows. The answer to the horseman is the spearman.
Exactly.
And it's a lot about what they're both thinking the other one's going to do. Because, like I said before, these guys, they're both quick players. There's going to be lots of skirmishes between them. And so far, you know, you got a random little ragtag army from both of them.
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to intercept the trade here. He's trying to manipulate the stealth forest, but the Khan here is hard to do. Last of the spearmen are going to go down, so horsemen will get full access. And Magadai, most of them are going to survive this skirmish, so decent exchange for PuppyPaw.
Yes, sort of. I like the fact that he backed off with the Magadai when he did. He took out the melee, and he's like, you know what, let's do it. And now that trade's going to start kicking in now. And obviously, the more traders you build, the more resources they get. It's a Mongol trait. Once you get 3, or 3 or 5 and 7, there's different tiers of what they start bringing in. So first it's gold, then it'll be a little bit of wood, then wood and food. And heaven forbid they get to the late game where it starts getting to stone as well.
Good lord. And that's the beautiful thing I think about Magadai whenever you go trade is they're primarily gold, right? So this is already starting to pay for itself. He even chooses to reinvest a little bit. We are now going to see the switch up. Probably, do you think you just go men-at-arms here if you're MarineLorD? You do have a lot of food. I
think men-at-arms is always a great choice against this kind of army. Like, at first, we didn't make them even remotely as much in the feudal. And I think that's because of the knight meta, like taking 3 TCs and stuff, and then your men-at-arms just got absolutely slaughtered. But right now, men-at-arms are as good a choice as any. It feels like spearmen, even though they deal with the horsemen, the men-at-arms do almost as good a job, but just tank way more.
Yeah, I think the Magadai at this stage don't have a high base damage, so the men-at-arms will offset, what, like half of it? Possibly more.
This is one of the things about Magadai that is both cool and really bad. Like, they get in here.
They're not leaving, though.
They're not leaving. They're not leaving at all. And if he got, even if he got 2 villagers there, the cost obviously not the best. But you got to remember, PuppyPaw's method in this game is to keep MarineLorD away. That's why he's on the map. He's going to be constantly poking and scouting. So that wasn't even necessarily just to deal damage. It's to keep MarineLorD back at home.
And you can see the effect of that. If you check MarineLorD's vision, like no one's past the mid-map. Even the scout he tried to chase down to block everything out. So MarineLorD doesn't really know where to go.
And right now, we've just got to keep tabs on what the econ is at. Because PuppyPaw's closing on age 3, man. And just from seeing that recon game, when he took a lot of damage, he actually got himself into a really good position.
Yeah.
Right now, I'd say this is looking pretty good for PuppyPaw. And that is weird, because for a long time, we've thought that Mongol isn't the best against English, but maybe this is absolutely the way you should play.
It's so different as well. Like we mentioned earlier, the reduced cost on the traders, but we can't underrate the increased production speed as well, right? It went down from, was it 35 seconds, I believe, to 25 or 20?
On the Silver Tree?
Yeah.
16 seconds for the Silver Tree there.
Yeah, it's absurdly fast. So if you don't actually start crushing it straight away, you're going to find this game snowball out of control. I think that's why we saw Mr. in the last series. He kept committing a lot of knights to try and slow it down.
All right, so PuppyPaw, he needs to make a switch now. Like, he's hoping to get the stepper down, and most likely, I'd imagine that he wants to think about countering the longbows and spearmen better. So maybe getting out some men-at-arms very quickly. But also, look at this. If his army isn't as strong, which he's soon going to find out it isn't, he's going to try and find a way to keep MarineLorD away from his eco, because his eco is all about that trade right now. And income-wise, if there's possibility for you, Mapu, to show the income per minute, here we are. It's looking pretty okay for MarineLorD, but remember, he hasn't started his age 3 up yet, and that's 13 workers making that step redoubt. So PuppyPaw, for all intents and purposes, very good shape this game thus far.
Yeah, and I want to give him a lot of credit for playing out to that deer, despite the fact MarineLorD's got a lot of feudal army. What?
This is one of those moments where you build the step redoubt and they go to the wood. He'll recognize quick enough. He will. I know he will. He's good enough to play. Come on, PuppyPaw.
Are we just, now if you say he'll recognize quick enough, do we just stare at it? Nah, look away. Let's not do this to him. I'm sure he'll figure it out quickly, because there's a lot of interesting dynamics with that cavalry you talked about, especially now MarineLorD is hard committing towards the trade.
Yeah, and PuppyPaw is doing exactly what I talked about. He's going to try and get out the men-at-arms very quickly. That fast-moving armor that he had on the map, it's done its job. It's kept MarineLorD away for a good 12, 13 minutes, even getting this tower up, which is, you know, that's an annoying tower to deal with. And I mean, he's got the units to deal with it, lots of spearmen in this mix, but he's going to make MarineLorD work for every second, because every second that he buys, he's getting men-at-arms and he's getting +1 ranged armor on them. And once MarineLorD sees those, he's in a world of trouble, because he doesn't have much to take him out.
Maybe MarineLorD, the reason we talked about the idea of men-at-arms instead of just mass spears, maybe he was a bit paranoid that the castle age was coming, the lancers are coming as well. So he wanted this more effective unit against lancers, but also cheaper than men-at-arms, so he can maybe flirt with a tech up eventually himself. Obviously, we're not seeing that right now, because now he has to double down on the feudal fully.
This is really nice. He's intercepted the reinforcements. That army back over on the left side can't get any bigger. And when it doesn't get bigger, when there's no more reinforcements, that's when you're feeling confident. Because this army, even though it is very good against the Cav, it's not going to cut it against everything else. The way that PuppyPaw is handling this map and just making it difficult for MarineLorD, it's great. And MarineLorD, he is one of these players that does tend to stick on feudal for a lot longer than a lot of other players, even though a lot of players can feel the rush.
Yeah.
Very often, he will feel like, okay, let's do this like China, where we get a lot of Zugnu, a lot of spearmen, we take map control, we do a lot with having more. But it is a weird playstyle to get used to, because he's one of the only guys that does it.
Yeah, I think that's why he was seen as the master of the French, right? That's the Civ that does this the most. And you can see how this is getting awkward now, just being pulled left and right. It's turned into a game of Benny Hills for MarineLorD. Another detail to think about with the Silver Tree right now, if PuppyPaw ever wants to keep that trade going, he could just build a marketplace on the right side now.
He absolutely could. He absolutely could. It's always worth thinking about what these players are actually going for and what they're trying to stop happening. Like, PuppyPaw, he's actually got what he wanted from that trade now. As long as he doesn't lose these traders, and he's dealing damage in MarineLorD's base, which kind of looks like is happening.
It definitely is.
It's what he wants.
He's caught him in the middle of an extra farm cluster coming out here as well, but a lot of troops are being sacrificed, maybe a little bit distracted by trying to save his trade, and now his villagers on the backside. MarineLorD getting maximum impact with his backstab slow army.
This is one of the things that makes MarineLorD tricky. When you think you've got a plan, and you're keeping him at bay, and you go to his base, you're like, you're going to be teching up, right? He's not teching up. He's still got a lot of units out there. And maybe soon he'll start thinking about that tech up, but the kind of bait and switch, or rather the fakie, if you will, he's got away with it, and he's kind of punished PuppyPaw here. Now his income is quite a lot worse than MarineLorD's.
And you see what's happening in Puppypaw. Like, these men-at-arms, if you get enough of them, they'll win this fight for you. But when you trickle them in, this many spears, kill them off before you see any impact out of them.
Yeah, I'm so surprised that Puppypaw didn't have more men-at-arms, actually. Like, I'm wondering...
He's got like 9, but he had like, what, 2 or 3 in that fight on the left side?
Yeah, I felt like if he just brought the men-at-arms to deal with this army alone, it would have been totally fine, but I think he overcommitted to dealing pressure. And now MarineLorD, this is great when you've got your army behind your opponent's base. Because, I mean, like, all his gold income now, it's all about that step redoubt.
Yeah, and he's caught him in the middle of a TC build-up. Won't be able to intercept that, but it's just going to slow Puppypaw down. Don't know what that trader was doing. He thought he was a villager that could drop off for a moment, but nice reactions coming out from Puppypaw to at least stem the bleeding. But overall, you got to give so much credit to MLord. I mean, just 19 spears, 19 lombos. I feel like he hasn't produced more for like the last, what, minute or so?
No, and look at his timing as well. Like, his HRE comes in now, but that's going to be his 3rd TC on the map.
Oh, yeah.
And his eco, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Puppypaw's head shake a little bit here, because he's like, damn, that longbow spearman army just get a lot stronger with that age up.
I think he dropped the King's Pass towards the south side as well, so that might have secured him, what, another gold? Okay, it covers his initial gold, gets him more fish as well, which is beautiful, because now you don't even have to think about the farms as quickly for the rest of your base.
Nah, this is a brutal game so far, actually. Like, I liked a lot of Puppypaw's game plan, but he overestimated what MarineLorD had back at home, and it's always one of those situations where it's like, you're not going to fully commit to my trade, right? And MarineLorD did, but he also committed to staying in that feudal for a long time. And unless you know MarineLorD really well, or you play against somebody that plays like him, it's a difficult one, because there's not many people that can pull it off.
It's kind of the unwritten law of feudals. Like, if I have mass cavalry, you have static, you kind of have to stay close to the base, you have to react to me. But I love the fact that MarineLorD just did not hesitate to walk slowly across the entire map and trust that his defenses at home would be enough to hold against the small group of horsemen and Magadai.
Yeah, and if I'm MarineLorD with the kind of eco that he has, which is insane food, I'd be thinking or trying to get up just a few barracks and getting lots of armor-chad men-at-arms out. Like, that is one thing that is very difficult to deal with. Forces the crossbows, which, given that he's got longbows already, you can deal with those, and your men-at-arms just have more armor than your opponents.
Yeah, and the tough one when you're the Mongols is like that mass men-at-arms probably puts you on the defensive. If there's one thing we know Mongols players do not like doing is sitting back and being the one taking the beating.
No, absolutely not. So for Puppypaw, what is he going to do with that silver? Okay, so he is starting trade again, which it's only 3 traders. I mean, it's not a good situation for him. Did you say he got up a 2nd TC as well? Yeah,
he got a TC up when the raid came on the step readout. He's building it, so he's getting some value there. But it's still such a big lead already for MarineLorD. I mean, it's like over 30 villages ahead, 35 in fact.
Yeah, and that armor chad is coming in now, and it's 10 men-at-arms already out for him. Only 1 crossbow on the field.
Oh boy.
He's got 1-1-1 across the board as well on the blacksmith upgrade, so all of his units are very decent, and it's just a big swell of units. Mongol does not want to be bullied. They do not want to be pushed back in the corner, but Puppypaw won't be able to get out of this one, I don't think.
Nah, he's going to start to lose mid-map control. Of course, he's relying on those pocket economies. Why is that dangerous? Why is that scary? If we check back at Puppypaw's base, I don't see many pastures. Do you?
I see nothing. I mean, this is a map where, you know, you kind of want to scavenge around for the fish, because that's like one of the biggest things, but
once it's denied, right? Any
time that you move out, like MarineLorD, if he really wanted to play this super smart, just sending 1 or 2 units out to each pond that he scouted. And I mean, 1 men-at-arms, you're not going to clear it up with the villagers at all, but remember, it's not MarineLorD that has to make a move right now. It is actually Puppypaw, so he's just kind of cementing the situation, just making sure, all right, there's no army around the map, I'm walling off the left side, I'm covering the right side, and he's just going to keep on suffocating Puppypaw. And as long as he knows there isn't any trade going about, like catching him off guard, he knows he's in good shape, because that's 3 villagers every cycle there. And that men-at-arms count now, 21 on the field.
And what I love is he hasn't lost focus of the recovery points. MarineLorD, you said about scouting the ponds. He even sent a few troops over the left side to make sure the trade is not back online. So as soon as the trade has come back, he'll pivot more troops to intercept.
Yeah, and big upgrades coming online for him as well. Like, he's got +2 range, which is really nice. He's getting the wood upgrades as well. I'm looking at the income per minute. Like, that is very sad for Puppypaw. Like, yeah. it's almost double across the board, which that is not what you want at all. And 165 supply. Like, Mongol kind of want to be within 20 supply of their opponent, but look at this. He's just flooding out units. He's getting the relics as well. Everything that Puppypaw sees on this side of the map, he's like, well, it's not going well here in this first game.
Like, yep, okay, I was meant to be moving towards those relics at this stage. MarineLorD, what have you done to my strategy? And another thing to think about is because that hit to the food, PuppyPaw can't even try to clash with mass men-at-arms. He's starting to pivot hard into siege.
Yeah, like the siege is a way back into it, like for sure. I know that. Is that actually for Mangonel?
No, there's a fun little bug to keep you on your toes as a caster. The Mangonels, folks, just to warn you, trebuchets as well. Most of the siege will show as 2.
Oh, that's lovely. That is lovely.
That's fun, right?
But I mean, that is still a scary count of siege. I mean, if he gets a big surround on it though, and he's kind of caught off guard here, I think MarineLorD should just go for it.
Yeah, just beeline straight away. Lombo's going to hold that ground and wrap around now, and you just don't have enough to guard this. Mangonel's going to be exposed. The best thing you can do is milk it to try and kill as many Longbows as possible. But even the traction trebuchet is sitting there going, I don't know what my purpose is. Why am I here?
Nah, and I mean, that is a rough defeat there on the battlefield for PuppyPaw, and you saw him kind of like wipe his mustache a little bit over there, and he has to walk home with his tail between his legs. The upgrades for his unit's just not as good. Yeah, and GG. Yeah, GG. Very well played by MarineLorD in that game.
Yeah, clutch moment there in the end. MarineLorD just easily able to overwhelm, catch his PuppyPaw, maybe trying to make the one move he can, try to weave in again, do what started him off so well. But I love the way you dissected that early game. You know, it felt like PuppyPaw executed perfectly, but MarineLorD just a very unorthodox player. It makes you wonder how much they've scrimmed together, and if he hasn't been up against a player like MarineLorD, is he prepped for this style of delayed feudal into castle style play?
I mean, these two definitely have played together.
Yes.
Like very early on, before everybody knew PuppyPaw was super good, MarineLorD was one of the first players practicing with him.
Okay.
Which I thought was really cool, actually, because it was like, sometimes you can just tell from their play that it's like, he has a good idea. Like, he can push me, he can make me learn as well. But I do know that recently, they practiced, and MarineLorD cut it. And I know that there's a lot of players, like the Mister as well, they tend not to like being beaten. So like, whenever they play against players that are pushing them, yeah, it's not good for their confidence. And PuppyPaw's been one of those guys. So getting a first map on the board, that's great.
Yeah, I think PuppyPaw, for a lot of people, they're coming in and it's like, MarineLorD seems like the obvious favorite, but PuppyPaw, in a lot of people's eyes, was maybe the one player that he should fear quite a lot, or maybe one of the 2 or 3 players he should fear the most.
Yeah, for MarineLorD, obviously Beastie is always a good opponent for him.
Definitely.
You know, if Beastie isn't having a sheep accidentally go neutral, then, you know, who knows? It could have been a very different final. But yeah, as far as skill goes and toe-to-toe-ness, like that call from PuppyPaw to go for the main and kind of rallied his men-at-arms over there as well. There's almost like one rule against English that it's like, don't raid them, like don't go to their base. I think he was playing a really good game of kind of threatening the reinforcements, but I think he should have rallied everything over to the left, save his trade, not sacrifice his army as hard as he did, and then he'd been good. Because I think the early game actually wasn't bad for PuppyPaw at all.
Yeah, it's that feeling that you kind of bait yourself, you go, oh, I've got Castle Age units, you've got Feudal Age units. I mean, this is a wipe, right? I can take you out. But it's that kind of Zerg factor, right? When the zombie apocalypse comes, there's only so many you can gun down before they get you.
Yeah, I mean, like English also, obviously they get the network of castles back at home, but also if you only get 1 armor upgrade against English, the longbows deal 1 extra damage. So they're still dealing 2 damage per hit, and then they've got the 20% bonus. So that +1 armor, not as effective against English.
Oh, hello. We're going to Mediterranean. It's going to be an HRE Mirror matchup, the second one we've had so far, I believe.
Really?
Yeah, I think the other one was Delhi earlier today, which was a delight in the BC Linux series.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think any player here has truly practiced mirrors. Like every player, when they got to the playoffs, it was like, we have to play mirror? It was kind of a big question mark, and I'm curious, because right now, this new arrow ship meta is being solid, but I don't think you can start off with it. Like we saw Magic against Lucifron, he went straight for the arrow ships, which we know he's been doing. He caught MarineLorD off guard, but Lucifron was just like, I'm going to make like 5 spring ulls straight away, 1 demo, or 1 arrow ship with it, and he just countered the hell out of it. So it's one of those things that it's good if your opponent's playing a bit of a mixed C kind of composition, but it's not good if your opponent knows he's going to do it. So we might see some mind games going on in the early games, but HRE is an absolute beast on the water. It's no surprise that both of them have gone for it.
Yeah, it's interesting because usually in these matchups, we talk about the fact you've got to make your 25 minutes last because the other side will come back into it. But instead, we get the second mirror matchup here in the playoffs for the final series of the day. MarineLorD open up with an early win, but PuppyPaw, let's see if he can come out ahead, show his skills, flex it a little, because in mirror matchups, that's usually the difference maker in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, like you also have to think about the psyche that both of them have at this point. It's like, you most likely know your opponent's going to pick HRE on Mediterranean, or at least PuppyPaw knows that, because his opponent's 1-0. Like, he has nothing to lose at this point, right? Like, he's 1-0 ahead. And PuppyPaw, he had to make the choice. Is he confident enough to deal with the next 3 civs and saving his HRE? Just kind of, you know, I don't want to say almost forfeiting this map, because it's never a forfeit, but HRE is that good. But the fact that he's kind of manned up and just said, hey, no, I'm gonna go with you. I think I'm really good at this civ, and he is really good with HRE, by the way. Yeah, I think that's very good for his confidence, or it shows me that he's quite confident still, despite that first loss. Because, yeah, a few different. He didn't play bad by any means, just a few different decisions, and he could have walked away with that game.
That's definitely. I think the interesting part is going to be if someone tries to sneak a little bit of land aggression. I remember in the BC Lennox series, it wasn't HRE Mirror, but Lennox tried to lean into a little bit of land aggression with some horsemen, men at arms. Maybe, especially if you see that the water's not going your way, that could be a possibility here.
Certainly could be. We're going to see MarineLorD has a few extra on wood than PuppyPaw. And you can get away with a very early second dock. And PuppyPaw is actually the one that gets the slightly earlier dock, despite how he's gone about things. And then it starts to turn into a situation of, when does either one of them tech up? I think in this matchup in particular, you don't have to tech up super quickly. Your HRE, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry too much about the Archon placement either. Like, Archon, you just want it bang on the trees. Like, as deep in as you can get. And the reason being, you don't have to worry about gold and sheep. You can just move them closer, but you don't really worry about the food either.
Can MarineLorD just be a little bit greedy about it and drop the Archon between these 2 wood lines?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think that would actually be an all right position. He might go for it a little bit south. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think either one of them really has to worry too much about the other resources in this matchup.
Yeah, I guess the tough part for PuppyPaw, if that's the case, is he only has 1 wood line he'll be able to access with the Archon influence. He'd have to settle for gold.
So MarineLorD's going to go for an Archon in the north there. You saw him just move his little mill, and I think that's because he's like, aha, yeah, I can put an Archon here. It helps if you can get it on all the resources. He'll shimmy the sheep over to that right side as well. He's been so skimpy on how many he's had on food. And I like that from him, because the more fishing boats you can get out earlier, there's a big change with ships in general. They cost a lot of food.
Yes.
Like, the only one that doesn't cost food is the demo ship. And right now, you don't really want to be making demo ships, because if your opponent has good arrow ship micro, they're just going to get annihilated.
Yeah, it's an interesting change. I think the idea is that, you know, if your opponent takes water, maybe you have some sort of play on land, whereas before, like, if he takes water, he has all this extra fish. He's probably able to beat you on land naturally without even have to worry about, you know, investing in extra ships is going to cost me food. Instead, it's just wood and gold, and I can just invest all this food into, say, excess horsemen or men at arms. It
looks like, if I'm just looking at the land, how it's laid out, it looks like MarineLorD will have to work his way south, whereas... Yeah. Maybe PuppyPaw's got a bit more choice here. It feels like quite a few relics are closer to him if it ever does go to age 3. You know, he can kind of wall off this section, grab himself 3 relics on that side of the map, whereas MarineLorD, he does have a couple of relics close to him as well. But yeah, I am very curious, because these water battles, they are not my cup of tea. I'm all right at them, but, you know, when it comes to playing against HRE in particular, or China, you're always on the back foot. But at least when you're in a mirror, you feel pretty all right about it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the new system feels a little bit more micro-intensive than the old. Maybe there's a kind of way to outplay. I especially like note the way that Lucifron has been able to optimize dodging these archer ships, for example, whereas the very first iteration was just, you know, click in, watch all the archers shoot their shots and never miss. Then you got to the spin to win Hulk element as well. I think while this isn't a perfect end solution, it's a good stopgap on the way.
Yeah, and look how both of them have placed it as well. They're like, I think PuppyPaw, in his situation, I'm not even sure if it reaches the gold in that situation. But
I don't think it does.
But that's not a big deal at all. Like, you don't need gold. Like, in most case scenarios, when we first started playing water, we were like, oh, like, I've got way too much gold now. And, you know, you really don't need it as much as you think. Like, we might see a situation where both of them have got, like, 3 or 4 on gold and max. Like, MarineLorD right now is not mining any. He's just focusing on getting that Archon up. But yeah, MarineLorD's was a little bit quicker, but PuppyPaw built it with more villages. So they're going to hit it about the same time.
Yeah. Well, one thing I was kind of thinking about is, like, when we get to the castle laser that comes around, I've only seen a few HRE games kind of go that late, but when it does, the relics, even when they get picked up, I feel like only half the players have been putting them in the docks.
Yeah. I mean, like, we're all kind of, what's the word? We've all got PTSD from when you put it in the dock and then your opponent got buffed as well, and it was like, hell no about that. But yeah, what does it do? It buffs
It's
your attack speed by
5% extra attack speed per relic.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a bigger deal now than it was.
Yeah, because it used to be spin to win, so why do I care? But now there are Springle ships, they share the shot on each side, so
Yeah,
it'd be a difference.
I think it's mainly about the arrow ships.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, once you do hit Castle, you get that +2, you get the armor upgrades, you get the extra set of arrows as well, then the attack speed really can... Oh, this is a nice scout by MarineLorD. I actually had to interrupt myself. Seeing this barracks here means that he can put up his own barracks, or just start walling off like he is doing. And here, even though it is a nice move by PuppyPaw, and it is forcing a move out of MarineLorD as well, you have to make sure that you don't lose water, and you really have to focus on making sure that you don't get caught off guard or overcommit. But PuppyPaw is also scouting really nicely here, seeing both the barracks, seeing how many docks he's dealing with. Nice play by both of them.
Yeah, it means PuppyPaw is maybe a little bit delayed in getting those vital Springle chips out, and MarineLorD sees an opportunity to start pouncing and idling the eco on the water side in the meantime. So he should be able to react to PuppyPaw on land and also get a little bit of an edge here on water because of that idle time.
Yeah. Like when MarineLorD hit his H2, he had a lot of wood saved up, and just moving out like this, just denying the food a little bit. You have to remember that denial of food means less ships as well, given how the new ship system works. But now we're going to start having the battles, and we're going to see what they're both going for. And I do think MarineLorD's strategy here of getting the one arrow ship that deals with the demos and getting the Springolds is a really good way of dealing with the arrow ship. Oh, this is really bad if he loses. That's really bad so far.
Not a good way to go. I mean, he at least has the Springles, but that means you don't want to hang around. I think that where the archer ship's especially valuable is when you reach that stage, don't necessarily target the Springolds, but if you've got a few of them, go after the fishing boats.
Yeah, so far in this series, I am seeing that MarineLorD seems very clean. Like, he's had a bit of a bumpy start, right, with losing to Magic and stuff, and I feel that if those two played again, maybe we'd see a completely different series. No discredit to Magic, because he played phenomenal and kind of showcased this arrow ship style. But yeah, you can definitely tell that MarineLorD is cleaning up and getting sharper as the tournament's going on.
Yeah, leaning even heavy into Springles. It feels like that he's definitely looking for momentum on that side, whereas PuppyPaw kind of maybe leaning a bit harder into archer ships, even now going into the demos.
Yeah, I mean, he's also making quite a few Springold ships, but he's getting that +1 nice and early. I think the way, like if MarineLorD does kind of stop around 5-6 Springold ships and then starts thinking about the +1 on the arrows, that's probably the best way of going about it. And the fact that they're both hard committed to having the Archon on the wood, we're not going to see like a big landslide of, you know, one guy having more ships than the other. So they both made the right call on that one.
Now, the question is what MarineLorD can do with these extra men at arms. He went a bit excessive compared to PuppyPaw, right, compared to the 5.
I mean, that's kind of the problem when you do a proxy racks like that. It's like you poke the bear, and now it's woke up. But MarineLorD being very, very optimistic here with moving in. He does have an extra Springold, but PuppyPaw's, you know, living up to the challenge, if you will, and he's about to hit +1 as well, and that's when things get scary. But in my experience, and granted it's only a few days experience with the arrow ships, I do think the number that you want to hit is close to like 15 or so. These kind of fights here, even though it's decent having the +1 upgrade, I'm not sure it's enough to really be clutching it out, but they're having a pretty close back and forth here.
And the demo ship might sneak in on the remaining Springald ships for PuppyPaw. Oh, clips one of them, so only one remaining in the clash. It means the archer ships have to somewhat carry this, and as you said, in small quantities, the Springolds will do what they're meant to, counter out the archers.
Yeah, this was not what PuppyPaw wanted. Even though he microed that really well, there was a few units trying to run away, sniped him down, but you want to wait. Like the arrow ship, the magic number is literally like around 15. One of the weaknesses of the Springold style, if the fishing ships come as well and start healing, then he'd have been in trouble.
Exactly, you can easily just clip them. And the other thing as well, when you, let's say you try to match 15 Springolds to say around 15 archers, those archers, like your Springolds are gonna group, right? They're gonna get AOE damage on them. In smaller amounts, you see it, they spread out in a line formation. You don't get that extra bang for buck on this AOE that the archer ships have.
Yeah, PuppyPaw's gonna start doing the only arrow ship style almost now at this point, and that is good. And MarineLorD, there's no blacksmith to be seen, at least for those upgrades, so that could be one thing that really catches him off guard. We're now getting to that stage of the game where the Archon almost doesn't come into play anymore, and that's when the Econ slows down a lot. The ships as well, they're so much more valuable now, given that the wood income will slow down a lot, which is a weird thing to say. Okay, this is nice by PuppyPaw, bringing the fishing boats. Yeah, there's not enough AoE damage for MarineLorD to deal with them, but still the arrow ship count's way too low. We've got 8 Springold ships on the field.
I think his whole army is just going to 0 at this rate. I mean, it's a good hold. MarineLorD just realizes he's ahead. He doesn't need to retreat away from this. Pretty much everything gone. Boom ship round the back, could recover though. PuppyPaw, maximum impact. half the Springalds now at the bottom of the ocean.
That was really clutch by him. Even having a... In fact, whose tower is that?
Oh, wait, okay. Yeah, I was about to say, no. We're not getting some weird outpost Russian and HRE mirror. I don't think my brain can take that at this moment.
No, I mean, if he did get a tower up there and put 4 units in, that would have been freaking sick. But yeah, right now, MarineLorD's in good shape. Like, he didn't even go for the +1. He just did that kind of style where we talk about, where he gets a lot of Springald ships, and then you can just peel out a few. But I really... This one demo ship that he had at the north just waiting there, that was really good by PuppyPaw. That kept him in it, but...
And he's doing it again. He had it sitting up there the whole time. He's going to skirt around, come probably very wide from behind, and second one does get spotted out, so we'll have to retreat. And you notice PuppyPaw, he's done that thing. He's admitted a kind of small defeat on the waterfront. He has to go for the emplacements on the docks. Yeah,
and I mean, that's not a bad thing to do, but what you really want is to never be forced into that situation in the first place. And as soon as this harass started dealing damage, and I mean, it's been a lot of action, right? Like, MarineLorD's been doing this while poking on the water. He's been kind of winning the water as well, from what I can tell. Like, he's got 19 people on the food. His food is going up a little bit faster. He's also, like, also what I said about the gold, by the way. Like, he's only had 2 guys on gold this whole time, whereas PuppyPaw, it's been 4, but, you know, he committed to the upgrades a little bit quicker and what have you. But now he's going to deal a little bit of his own eco harass. This could be nice from him.
And 4 demo ships for PuppyPaw. Like, if he plays this right, if MarineLorD overextends, all of a sudden MarineLorD has to double down on water to replace what's lost. And he is coming in this very moment. He's trying to hide the demos, but looks like it's a little bit too revealed. MarineLorD will back up. Good interception here, so minimum to no damage coming out from the demo commitment. PuppyPaw now with only 1 left on the water.
Yeah, this is not what you want. In fact, where are those... Do they have naval slits? I don't think they do, right? Like,
they're still coming through, right? Maybe he done 1. I think he done like 1 of them.
I mean, this is rough, man. This is really rough. MarineLorD's just bullying him on the water right now. 96 supply to 63. Like, this arrow ship style, it was good while it lasted. But this is MarineLorD coming and absolutely bullying PuppyPaw on his side of the map, right outside his docks as well. And I mean, PuppyPaw is probably going to tap out after this happens.
Especially with his archer ship just picking apart the fishing fleet. It's like, even if you keep these alive, it's just a death for both of you instead. And it does feel like the beginning of the end. I mean, MarineLorD, he still has that raid from the men-at-arms on land. Now he has full water control. PuppyPaw, it's difficult to see a way now to get back into this game at all.
Yeah, it's super hard. And like I said, the wood has slowed down so much as well that trying to re-establish anything, it's almost like MarineLorD planned his timing around the arc and not benefiting the wood anymore. Yeah. And it was such a good timing to hit. You see PuppyPaw playing with his Tash a little bit, just soaking it in, thinking about how does he get back into this, if at all. And I look at this, I look at the numbers, I'm like, there's not really much chance at all, but he's a warrior. He'll see what he can do.
I'll shake it off, he'll move in. Remember, these are best of 5, so not going to say farewell just yet to PuppyPaw, but unless he pulls some sort of big Hail Mary, we will be saying farewell to the second map and putting a second point on the board for MarineLorD.
And this is one of the worries about picking HRE. Like, you know your opponent's going to do it, and HRE is so strong right now. I might even say it's the second best Civ.
Yeah.
Because I did think it was going to be Abbasid going into this tournament, but HRE's absolutely shown up. It's shown up massively on the water maps as well. This is a rough loss for PuppyPaw, and his mentality, it's going to start feeling a bit broken at this point.
That's the thing. When it's not a mirror matchup, you're like, oh, it was a bad matchup for me, a bad map. But when it's a mirror, you know, it's always been kind of bragged as this, oh, that's the showing of skills. Oh, that's where you really see who's the better player. You can talk about the RNG of the map a little if you want, but Petito's been working his ass off to make sure these are as balanced as possible.
Yeah, and MarineLorD, I think when he hits this age 3, which he's doing it with the Regnets, remember, like, those relics, they're all up for grabs. And he's got so much income right now. If you just look at the numbers that they've got on each resource, he's obviously got nothing on wood because he's building his Regnets with that, but he doesn't need the wood anymore. Like, he just needs gold, he needs food, and then he can think about the wood after.
Do you think the moment the tech up comes out, PuppyPaw just calls it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, PuppyPaw, he's not even remotely close. I think he's gone for a second TC or something.
He's set up farms, so it's like you always complete the farm setup, you're a whole age behind, and even then, and you talked about that wood. I mean, this is so exposed, and the person who's walling should be PuppyPaw, but the person who's actually walling is MarineLorD very aggressively.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Once you get the water, like, you can just move your boats all around the map. You have so much vision. That food income, I don't think he's got anything on food at home, and Castle, Aegis Reach, and yeah, PuppyPaw, I won't be surprised if it happens, man. Like, he's just so dead in the water, but, you know, he is fairly new. like fairly inexperienced. Maybe this is just time to be like, you know what, I'm as dead as can be. Let's just get a bit more comfortable here. Let's see what I can do when I'm really far behind. Let's see what he does as well.
The danger is, you know, you don't want to be on match point for your opponent, right? You don't want to be on the edge of the abyss, but at the same time, you know, if you just stay in this and you weigh yourself down, you demoralize yourself, it could be over. But PuppyPaw, where are we going here?
Palace of Swabia on the way as well from MarineLorD. That's how much food income that he's getting.
This is absurd. I mean, if the Castle Age didn't get him to wave the white flag, this might.
Yeah, like that's actually really surprising. I see everything and I'm surprised by how fast that is, but that just shows you if you do win water, you know, you're so freaking dead because PuppyPaw, he needs 1,200 food, 600 gold for that age 3, never mind the age 4. And that score on the right side, you know, I don't often get to see that, but that does not speak well for his situation. Oh my god.
And just look at the bump and score from that appropriately. So easily queues up all the villagers and instantly calls the GG PuppyPaw with his hands against his head. He's feeling the pressure now, 2 in a row, and MarineLorD now already on match point.
MarineLorD's tough, man. Like, you know, he's hard to play against. He's hard to go up against on the stage, given that you can see his face over your monitor and what have you. And that is very, very unsettling. But yeah, when you see that he's playing this well, because he's playing very clean. Like, every move that he's making, his micro's on point, his macro's on point. Yeah, he took a demo ship in the ass over there in the middle of the map, but that was his one small error, and he was so far ahead. And, you know, PuppyPaw, like, people on the ladder right now might be thinking, hey, I could compete with these guys. You play against any one of them, you know, you don't stand a freaking chance. So everything that they're doing right now, it is very high level, but you can see PuppyPaw there, he's a little stressed out.
It's that type of moment where you wish you could say time out, can we walk away for a moment, and you wish you had some sort of mental coach to kind of get you back in the game, because you mentioned it in the cast, you know, this is a high pressure environment, this is PuppyPaw's first time, you got to feel it. MarineLorD, of course, has been here time and time again, on the ropes at lands. He has that mental fortitude to bounce back easily, even when he's up against the ropes. The question is whether PuppyPaw can.
I'm very curious now, because if I look at the civs that they've got left, they've got 4 Lakes, Dry Arabia, and Golden Heights. So MarineLorD still has Mongol in the back, which I'd save that for Golden Heights any day of the week.
Yeah.
He's still got 2 Abbasid. I'd probably use one of those on Dry Arabia.
Yeah, and what, PuppyPaw goes Delhi, right?
Yeah, in fact, maybe he goes Ottoman on Dry Arabia. But I'm really struggling to see what PuppyPaw does, because Golden Heights, he doesn't have English, he doesn't have Mongol.
Do you maybe save Ottomans for that?
Yeah, he's got. I would personally pick Ottoman on Golden Heights, Delhi for Dry Arabia, because now HRE's gone. Like the one HRE pick's gone. That opens up Delhi massively. Like as far as most of the players concerned here, Delhi cannot win against HRE. So the fact that that's out the mix now, you're like, all right. Maybe he just goes for Dry Arabia, gets a Delhi pick out there. Because I think as far as Delhi players go, PuppyPaw's the best.
Definitely, I agree. We saw him surprise everyone rather. I think he was one of the first players to really show that the French could be dominated by the Delhi on Dry Arabia, and then everyone followed suit after that.
Yeah, and MarineLorD having double Abbasid, he's still one of the players that really does believe in it.
Yeah.
And I guess that if it does go to 4 Lakes, Abbasid it's a decent pick. We got to see Mr. kind of boss around Recon a little bit, and it's very nice having multiple docks everywhere. But yeah, Roos is a tough one to compete with on that map. But yeah, I'm definitely struggling to see what he does on Golden Heights if that is to be played, because going up against Mongol's just a beast over there. Absolutely,
and you know, just to round on that 4 Lakes fort, I think the Abbasses, we already saw in the Recon Mr. series how they can overwhelm the Roos, and I think like the Roos, they're still decent on that map, but I don't think they're as good as they previously were, and it's maybe something that hasn't set in because I don't know how many people have really been practicing.
Which
4
map?
Lakes.
Oh, Roos?
4 Lakes, yeah, Roos.
I still think Roos are very good on that map.
But do you think they're like the god tier they used to be?
I mean, when we thought they were god tier, then China came along and kind of ousted them a little bit. But right now, with how good their fishing boats are, and the fact that all fishing boats are equal now, trying to get control of the lake, like you can't just do a little snipe dock, right, where you get out a few junk and it's like, oh, you have to make your own battleships, which aren't as good, or HRE getting a galley. I actually think Roos maybe got a little bit better on 4 Lakes.
Interesting.
Which, that's just because the ships became sort of equal. So if you can wall off, because you only need 1 pond for Roos to be good.
That's true.
Which, you know, if you're the other Civ, you need like 2 ponds to be equal to 1 Roost pond, which if you just consider that like mathematically, it is good for us. But yeah, the only options I see for PuppyPaw right now, Delhi on Dry Arabia, Ottoman on Golden Heights, 4 Lakes Roost. And MarineLorD, given that his Civ pool is a little bit more dynamic, he's going to know as well as I do that that's probably what's going to play. So he's most likely going to go for counter picks here.
Yeah, so Dry Arabia, I mean, I'm kind of feeling he's going to go Bassids. So some people have been thinking about Ottomans, but in my theory crafting, I don't know how much he practiced it. I feel like the Delhi are a bit too fast for the Ottomans.
I think he'll go Ottoman.
Yeah.
If it's Dry Arabia, I don't think he's comfortable with Abbasid there. I don't think he's comfortable with Mongol. I think he's going to try Ottoman with this meta pressure stuff.
Yeah.
There's one like Theorycraft build that we've been thinking about, and it's starting off with the meta speed upgrade. Because the Scholars, the way that they move and attack move, their healing, whatever happened in the most recent patch, it's not quite as clean.
Okay.
So like when they start healing and like getting attack moved, sometimes they just like run ahead of your army, or they run behind and they don't quite know what to heal. Whereas before it felt a lot easier to do, which is kind of interesting, actually.
I think we saw that a little earlier today in the BC Linux series where he went for the Wololo play and he kept picking up the Wololo and his Scholars just kept ignoring the guy that needed healing. So there might be something to that, especially when you rely on the attack click behavior, which they added in for heals.
Yeah, this is all super theory crafting and purely based on the fact that I think PuppyPaw will play Dry Arabia here because...
Yeah. We can see it in the center screen. We were definitely getting Dry Arabia.
Ah, okay.
Sorry, I should have told you.
Did we see the Civs as well or not yet?
No, we haven't seen the Civs. They're teasing us, making us wait. You got to build the suspense, Ben.
Got to build the suspense. I'm too busy thinking about what both of them are going to do because both Wham and PuppyPaw are very good with Delhi. And I mean, they've been sharing a lot of stuff. Even their builds are slightly different to other players. Like they both, or at least Wham was opting for everything on wood, building the mosque straight away, and then getting the mill afterwards, which is very nice. Okay, Delhi.
Drum roll. It's going to be the Ottomans. So green on green here.
What can I say?
Look at you. You just know.
It's almost like I play this game for money, you know?
He's almost like you're not too bad at it either.
Not too bad. I mean, sucks that I lost to bloody MarineLorD losing that first game and they get me in the freaking deciders.
But if he goes on to win, you know, in a way, you're kind of like second best player because you got eliminated by the best.
That's true. I mean, if he goes undefeated from this point on, I mean, then Magic's actually the best, right?
Yeah, that's what, like, so you're maybe like top 4?
Maybe top 4, top 4. I mean, the stars did not align for me this one, meeting MarineLorD in the deciders. But I actually feel for Wham a lot because he played Lenok in the first round. Then it was MarineLorD in the loser bracket straight away.
It breaks my heart because I thought he'd be, you know, around top 8. I thought was fair. Like PuppyPaw, I'd say PuppyPaw, no offense to Wham, he's the more improved of the two bros, but they are fairly close as comparative to when you talk about Vortex and Luciferon.
Yeah. And Wham, if he did beat MarineLorD, he'd have run into me as well. That'd have been a rough road, you know. Some players have made it through. I don't want to say easily because nobody's been easy here. Like
call them out.
Yeah, no, I mean you tried to make me call them out in the when you asked me list the players from like strongest to weakest, and I was like, I think these are my top 4, but everybody's way closer than people would think. Like you know, you've seen that this tournament now. Like Recon showed up. You've seen players like Magic absolutely show up. Quite an underdog's story.
Well, it'll be quite the turnaround story if PuppyPaw could pull it back here. He needs to. Match point for MarineLorD. If he wins this, PuppyPaw is out and MarineLorD keeps the dream alive. Let's kick to it. Dry Arabia, green on green, but not the same civs as Delhi versus Ottomans.
All right, so MarineLorD is opting for that. Oh, okay, I thought it was going to be a military. Okay, there we go. Like, when you make a military school, you kind of want to make it behind your TC in general. Like, there's a few things that we've learned about Ottomans. One of the first ones, you want your production behind because it's all going to be in the same spot with that first blacksmith. Secondly, you kind of want your mill landmark to also be kind of the bottom right of your base. So if he did make it, yeah, I think about right there would be good because then the berries, yeah, Mapu's shown us, he knows what I'm on about. They're close to that TC, so then they can hop right in if they get in focused. And quite a few games early on in my practice where they made it on the other side, my Lombos came along, Bob's your uncle.
Could you maybe just, it could be either south or north maybe, because you get the berries on the other side as well, right?
So ideally, I wouldn't have put my military school, I'd have put my military school slightly more up and right.
Yeah.
And then put it bang there where Mapu's showing.
Yeah, because then you can grab berries on either side and then, oh no, we're dying? Just get in safety.
Absolutely. But I like theory-wise, I do think this is a little bit tricky for Ottoman because maybe in a few weeks or months we might have figured it out better for how to deal with it. But this patch, Delhi is solid. Like it's very good. The only matchup I don't like it in is against HRE, but everything else you have to figure out Delhi because you have to play their game, not your own. And for Ottoman, it's very matchup specific. But I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for an early meta. Lots of archers and just goes for gung-ho pressure.
Yeah, that was kind of my take on the Ottomans when I saw them. Like they're very delayed to get online fully, but when they are, they're kind of an unassailable beast. And I think the way I describe them is like they're a delayed Delhi, right? Delhi, they do it through healing, and that's the efficiency play there to get more bang for buck. On the other side, Ottomans, over time, they get all this passive production going, and maybe it takes them an extra 5 minutes to get online compared to the Delhi, but if they reach that timing, it feels impossible to beat them.
Yeah, and it's just that attack speed boost, man. Like
seriously.
Yeah, because I mean, like certain civs like Delhi, you get the Tower of Victory, and you get a landmark for that bonus, you know. And then you get the speed as well, and you can choose like if you go against lots of melee and get that +2 melee armor and stuff. It's a very versatile unit, but the Spearman has shown. Oh, what are you gonna say?
Sorry, I was gonna say even in the early game, they're good tanks. They're 180 health. Like you can just use them to bait. I think we've seen some games where people run the meta intentionally past the front lines, like hit me.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's intentional just yet, just giving this over, but I know what you're getting at. Like, trying to take that bad boy down, it's tough. Maybe that's one of the things that they'll tweak a little bit in the future, just make it a little bit weaker.
Yeah, there's a few devs around, maybe whisper in their ear.
I've already talked to all of them. I'm like, mate, you gotta change this, change that. No. I think actually the game's in pretty damn good shape right now. This first gold for PuppyPaw was as nicely located as it could be for this Spearman. Has to walk all the way around. One of the big things for PuppyPaw is he does want to keep that gold flowing, and he doesn't want to take this Scholar out necessarily, because that does slow down a lot of these eco upgrades.
And also these Spearmen, they pressure you a little bit quicker now, right? Up from 6 damage to 7 damage. It sounds pretty pitiful, like I'm nitpicking, but it means you have to pull these villagers back a strike sooner.
Yeah. And I mean, the Scholar can come out and help this out, but yeah, the reason that he wasn't going for that as quick as he was, did want to make sure that he was getting the upgrades along, but this is still a nice move from MarineLorD, because we were speaking about this before he played, and I was like, this is still good, because even if they do heal it, and they will out-heal it, this still slows down that Sacred Site situation significantly. Like, even if you can say a good 30 seconds or so, that's absolutely buying you resources when you think about it.
The comparative is if an HRE player has to do this, but that time it's more apparent. It's like, haha, you're not getting the 40% buff. Whereas this time, as you pointed out, although it's not affecting the resource gain, it's affecting the tech gain, which is just even more important.
Absolutely. And now we'll start to see what MarineLorD is going to go for afterwards. He saved up quite a bit of gold here. Most likely we'll use that straight away on something like Wheelbarrow, maybe some wood income as well on a lumber mill. Because right now, also in the new patch, most eco upgrades are significantly cheaper. Yeah,
they went from 250 to 150. I think it was also, it used to take, was it 75 seconds, and now it's down to about, I think, 45.
Yeah, I'm not sure necessarily about the exact numbers on the time.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a nerd sometimes.
It's all good. All right, 8 on food, 5 on wood, 3. Okay, so there is more on the stone. That's good. That does indicate that he will be going for, what's it called, more military schools, because I don't think he can go 2 TC. It just frees up the Delhi way too much in this matchup.
Yeah, you go 2 TC, like you said, it's going to delay that timing in the military schools, and you probably forfeit at least 2 sacred sites.
I say that you shouldn't go 2 TC, but MarineLorD...
Is he thinking about it?
Yeah, that many on wood, and that little on food, like that's going to be 3 guys on the berries. Okay,
there's the next military school.
Yeah.
He's just keeping you on your toes.
I think, yeah, we'll see what he's doing with the stone. In fact, can we have a little look over there, Mapu, see if he's... So he is still going for it, like... He's got a choice here. Does he keep on mining stone to get up to 100 for the 3rd military school later on down the line? Just saves you a bit of the trading. Or goes for the 2nd TC. With that amount on wood, maybe he's just going to hope to get up a big amount of production. Because production for Ottoman, it is cheaper as well.
And let's talk about the Madrasa a little bit. Because I've talked to Dronga about this. We said in the cart. He feels like it might be the best landmark tier 2 in the game right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think it competes with the chapel.
Yeah. I was wondering about that one. But it is incredibly good, right? Like, the gathering rates, the safety of the food, gets you through that awkward period into the passive production. I almost feel like I want to say it's even better than the Golden Gate now.
Yeah, I mean, the Golden Gate was nice, especially around the, the 300 stone 2nd TC thing, but it definitely took a massive hit here.
Yeah.
And MarineLorD, he's super confusing me with what he's done, because now he's got nothing on stone. but he is going for that mass production spike, which, yeah, I think he is going to go for this archery situation. I went for the meta, so he's doing exactly what I talked about.
It's so good. So for those wondering where this meta came from, he didn't magically get brought here from God. The Imperial Council point was invested, which means not only does meta appear for free just instantly, but now the aura gives a movement speed buff to anyone that's in the same formation.
Yeah, which means that it won't work on the villagers, but it will work on all your military, which is good. But yeah, he's doing exactly what we talked about, and he's going to really try and take advantage of the fact that your opponent, if you have the movement speed, you've got the attack speed, movement speed, your archers are just going to be better, and those scholars don't really get to do their job. One thing that I think Puppypaw really needs to think about here is getting those sites locked down with some good walls early on.
You know, the crazy part is at the start we were talking about metas, and you mentioned, you know, the attack speed aura. Other civs like the Delhi have to buy a landmark to get that attack speed aura. Let's think about the fact that you also get that movement speed aura. You know, you're basically the Mongols and the Delhi combined in one because of this one unit at this stage.
Absolutely. It's monstrous. And the thing for MarineLorD is that stone that he has excess, even though it's a bit of a mistake having the extra 67, he's going to be able to get his second tier of Vizier upgrades as a third military school. And that's going to be pumping out a lot of units. Most people like to get out the Sepahi, given that you don't need to get a stable to get an upgrade because they're already kind of maxed out as they are. This is problematic though for Puppypaw. He has no spears with this. This is actually really bad for him.
Yeah, he's just going to get blitzed through. The Skull's going to try to heal through this. The bonus damage might be a little bit too much. And with the archers supporting as well, I mean, the best thing you can do is just trade out the ranged units because there's no way you're going to be able to overwhelm the Sipahi.
No, I mean, the Sipahi, they have that nice bonus there where they attack 50% faster, but they don't take any extra damage from the range. It's from the melee that they take extra damage, and they were nowhere to be seen. That back wall is actually kind of hurting Puppypaw here. This is a disastrous start for him.
It's like, I know, walk inside, then it's a trap, then my horsemen are useful, but I don't think that's even going to work out. You're just seeing the power of the attack speed aura. Just one spearman here as well to block everything off, and all of a sudden, Puppypaw is going to flop in this middle fight.
Oh, this was super bad for him. This was really bad for him. And I mean, kind of unfortunate. The Puppypaw that we're seeing right now, it's not quite the one that I've played against in practice or seen in practice. I definitely feel the nerves of playing against MarineLorD on stage. I kind of get into him here because right now you'd be hoping to try and get a situation where you've got at least 2 sites going, but he doesn't even have 1.
You know what it kind of feels like? You know, think back to game 1, how impressed we were with the first 10 minutes. It almost feels like MarineLorD kicked him off of his flow, right? His game state. And since then, Puppypaw, I feel like he's looked a bit off tilt, right? And not on his typical form, as you said, that we'd expect to see. Yeah,
and I mean, that's a lot about new strats coming into play literally the day of, right? Like, this is something that I'm not sure many people at home know about, but this meta style where you get it instead of the sheep initially feels very wrong, but it's so right once it gets going.
I love you said that, because I remember when we first got here, talked to a few players about it, they thought that this was the worst one of the 3, right? There's the last one that you got. Maybe even like you didn't get, sorry, not
Scrubs.
Well, maybe you don't go in man, but you kind of ignore it and just go for the tier 2 ones.
Yeah, it was actually Magic that told me about the meta stuff. And initially I was like, okay, yeah, I can see that. And I tried it a few times and I was like, yeah, this is really good, especially with this mass archer style. Because, yeah, that meta adds... I almost think it's too much at this point. Like, I really do. Because, you know, for Delhi, you think about the Tower of Victory. That's a landmark that does that. And then it's... For English, it's just a single tower that adds that. And then you got the speed on top of it. It's an absolute bargain.
It's crazy. Like, we're over here basically pushing for Ottomans to get nerfed this rate. And then on the other parts of the broadcast, I'm just talking about how Malians are trashed here, so...
What are the upgrades right now? I imagine MarineLorD has +1 on archers thus far, which would be very nice for him.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that is a lot of horsemen that he has to deal with. He has to respect that number. He is getting his own Sepahi out of all the military schools. He's got a single barracks that helped upgrade the spearmen. He'll be popping out spearmen when he can as well. But by the looks of his eco, he's just going to look to stay on H2 for a long time, and that is the right move. Oh, no.
Puppypaw, he doesn't engage straight away. The body blocks alone are going to keep him off this long enough that it just doesn't feel like a good fight for him. He needs to get the horsemen on top of these archers, but even then, that attack speed aura, he's protecting the meta to make sure that it's going to be there for the entire fight.
Yeah, and I mean, look at these archers. They move so nice and nimbly. It's monstrous, and I mean, Puppypaw is doing everything he can to snipe down even the meta or the archers, but that army just evaporated. And I mean, This is looking real bleak for Puppypaw.
It's insane. I feel like, you know, just as many horsemen died as archers, and if you just do the maths on that, it's not good because you're paying 1.5 times for these horsemen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean,
well, even more than that, actually, because Ottomans are getting them for free, right, in some cases.
But this is the power. Like, this is the power of drafting and seeing what your opponent has and what they're left with. Like,
yes.
Puppypaw had to go for Delhi on this map, and MarineLorD, he knew that, whereas Puppypaw maybe thought this was going to come out, but he didn't know exactly what was coming out, but MarineLorD's played this to absolute perfection.
Yeah, and you know, the beautiful thing is MarineLorD with this type of control, he could think about eventually flirting Castle in the next few minutes, or he could just all-in feudal. I think he just all-in feudal here, right?
Yeah, because that archer count, it gets really scary once it hits about 50, even though it's already ridiculously scary. And right now, like, he's going to start doing that kiting stuff that we talked about, where these scholars, they're not even going to come into play. Puppypaw's actually doing a good move here of bringing the units back to compensate for that, but there's too many archers.
But the scholars, instantly, like you mentioned scholars, are getting targeted. This is enough to just eviscerate them, and reproducing them is not easy, remember. He went for the Dome of Faith. He'd have to wait 45 seconds per, unless he wants to pay 150 gold for each scholar, and it's still 30 seconds.
And you have to remember, like, that's 3 military schools producing. Every moment that goes by, this army's getting bigger and bigger. It's a very cheap army to make, and it's just getting worse for Puppypaw. And does he even have one? He hasn't had one sacred site this whole game. This has been, like, truly suffocating.
And remember, he walled one more or less, right? So it almost looked like it should have been him prepping for a freebie. That never came to fruition due to the assault before it fully went up. And now just fully boxed in, blocked off of his wood as well. Berry Patch is going to be spotted out. He won't be killed off here because there's only one trooper. But if MarineLorD wants, he can just rear around and chase over there.
I think Puppypaw, he's left with very few choices here. And one choice that he has, he either keeps on making feudal units, but it's not the army you want to go up against. Because I mean, 41 archers now. Like, this is almost old school Rust style, where you prioed the fact that you got more wood than your opponent, and you had a lot of archers. Unless you're a civ like English or HRE, where you can get out men at arms to deal with this, you're in a lot of trouble. But it has the speed. That's the thing. Puppypaw, I don't think he's long for this game.
And once again, just gets body blocked on the front side. And this time, it just feels like there's barely any horsemen here. Once again, he's going to be overwhelmed. Meta still tanking the front line. Finally, the bad boy will go down, but he's already got his value here. A second one's being prepped back at home, but in the meantime, MarineLorD has the numbers to just plow on through.
Yeah, MarineLorD's looking sharp. And I mean, 103 supply.
He got him in the berries. That's it. He knows he's got nothing left. Puppypaw goes from plenty of food to none at all. MarineLorD will make it a clean 3-0 to get one of the favorites out of this tournament that we saw coming early on. In fact, before this series, Puppypaw had not dropped a single game.
I mean, Puppypaw was looking really good. I do think he was maybe a little bit nervous in this series. I really do think he was... I liked his situation in the Mongol game for a while.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where it's like, you overcommit on the English base, you're in a little bit of trouble then, and then it kind of fell apart. Second game, that was just one of those things where I think MarineLorD knew what Puppypaw was going to do.
Yeah.
And he countered it by getting a lot of the spring-old ships early on. And I mean, that is one of the things where if a new meta does come along, it's not too long until a new one develops. And you see that in these games. But you could tell MarineLorD, every game he came in with an idea, a plan. He kind of knew what... He was never flustered, right? So whatever Puppypaw had planned in a game, MarineLorD knew exactly what to do to throw it off. Yeah. But also how to, be ahead. And the fact that he came out with this Ottoman build and the meta, I hope he's got a little thank you for me on stage, because, I was telling him that's real good.
I don't, you know how he says thanks to you. I don't think you want to hear
he
the way
loves me,
thanks.
he loves me. He absolutely does.
But, like, just a quick round for, like, the Ottomans as well. They continue to ramp pressure, it feels like. And then all of a sudden, like, Delhi usually the pressure makers. It feels like the longer you're not doing something, the worse it gets. But you know what? Why hear from me? I'm just a geek. Let's hear from a pro nerd. We're going to head across the stage for an interview. Ellie has got a chance to catch up with one